ago, the last 3 biennium, we've been in the Capitol for our state arts advocacy today. Today, we're here in a virtual experience. Nothing is the same. We are typically coming with very big figures, which we still have, and you'll hear about data, about the economic impact of the arts, the economic impact of cultural districts. You'll hear these success stories over and over again, the impact on tourism, the impact on health, the impact on education. What is new this year, new by 2020 standards, is the absolute decimation of the tourism industry, the arts and culture sector because of COVID. It's not anybody's fault. It's the new landscape that we're having to navigate. So what we really want to make sure today, when we're meeting and planning to meet with our legislators, is we're talking about how powerful the arts are, how integral they are to providing economic support and economic influence and economic impact in our communities in good times. With bad times and the demise of tourism and hotel stays, we are facing critical shortfalls in funding that when our states and our state and our communities start to rebuild with the vaccine, as the pandemic begins to become under control, we need the arts healthier and there more than ever to ensure that there's something to be a tourist about. There's reason to travel to our communities. There's reason to spend the night. There's reason to engage in arts and culture because that's a cornerstone of the identity of our communities. And it really helps us heal as neighbors, as cities, as towns, rural and urban. So that's the very different climate that we're in here today. And everybody's facing that. We know there's budget challenges, but we believe investing in the arts is critical and instrumental to being prepared to help restore our communities through the COVID pandemic. I'm going to turn it over to our next guest speaker. I am really humbled to introduce my state senator, Sarah Eckhart, and just a little bit of a background. She was elected senator of District 14 this last session. This is her first session after serving 2 terms as Travis County judge, where she represented 1.3 million county residents, improving access to an opportunity for Travis County families. After receiving an LBJ School Master's of Public Affairs and a law degree from UT Austin, Senator Eckhart worked for 8 years as an assistant Travis County attorney. This term, being her first term, she is and was just announced in terms of the committee service, Local Government Committee, Nominations Committee, Veterans Affairs and Border Security, and Water, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs. And really great for all of us is that she went to the Houston High School of Performing and Visual Arts, and she has a BFA in theater, and she can command her own on stage, on any stage. And welcome, Senator Eckhart. We look forward to hearing your ideas on why we should advocate and what's it like to be a legislator when people knock on your door, your virtual door, and say, "Hi, I'm your constituent." The floor is yours.
It's great to be here, Anne. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I was in a suit right before this, but I decided for this, I would put on my old high school t-shirt. So I've got my HSPVA t-shirt on. It's great to be here with you all. Just to give y'all a little background, I did go to the high school for the Performing and Visual Arts. I was one of those kids who probably wouldn't have graduated high school, but for the Performing and Visual Arts high school. Not that I wasn't a good student. I was just, I was having some issues fitting in. So HSPVA was super important to me. Then I went off to NYU and got a BFA and was in David Mamet's theater company for 10 years before coming back to Texas to get a bar card to go to law school and become a trial attorney, because trial attorneys are just thespians with bar cards. So that was a great experience. I had a great time in the courtroom, but I decided that doing one case at a time was kind of like doing the same play over and over again. And that I really wanted to work on policy. I wanted to change the play. So that's why I decided to run for a political office, and I was a county commissioner for about 8 years, and then I was the county judge for about 5 before running for the state senate. I'll tell you the reason why I ran for the state senate is a lot of what we were doing at the local level was going really well, but often it was stymied by what was happening at the state level. And so I like to go where the work is. So I was tired of the play at the state level, and I thought maybe I could change up the script a little bit. So super happy to be there. That's my background. As far as advocacy for the arts at the federal, state, and local level, it's so important. I'll give you a window in on what I'm hearing at the federal level. There's CARES Act money in the Small Business Association that is supposed to be targeted to theaters to help ferry our theater and live entertainment venues to the other side of this pandemic. And I'm hoping that that gets up and running as quickly as possible. We certainly need it. At the state level, I'm sorry to say, I'm not seeing a whole lot of activity designed to ferry our performing arts venues to the other side of this. So I'm looking for ways that our local leaders might be able to opt in to assist. Our local leaders are doing some really amazing things, trying to keep our performing arts going through this, or keep them on ice so that as soon as they can come back out, they will have been preserved to the greatest extent possible. So it is absolutely important to do this kind of advocacy work, to remind folks what the arts mean to them. You know, I'm going to do a little bit about where we are in COVID and just pump it all up for a moment. Our arts community is so important to us surviving this pandemic. Many of you know, I think I'm pretty sure I'm preaching to the choir here. You know what it feels like when, you know, any of y'all who are songwriters, it's like, wow, when I was in a breakup, I wrote such great songs. But now that I'm in a happy relationship, I just can't seem to get the juice to write a good song. I need to have a breakup going. Same thing with playwrights. When a society is in what's known as an X period, when society is in a period of confusion, and people are searching for something to look forward to, and they're looking for joy, and they're looking for something to, a scaffolding on which to hang some meaning through something like COVID, arts is where you go for that. That is the purpose of art, to bring the life of the human soul to the stage or the recording booth or through the camera. It's a way that it's a way that we see and are seen. It's a way we hear and are heard. And it's a way that we find joy collectively. And so that's why the arts are so important, particularly during COVID. We can't go dark. If you are an artist, you can't help but to perform. You can't help but to record. You can't help but to photograph. You just got to do it, even if our stages are closed, even if our live performance venues are not available, even if our gallery spaces have become virtual. So I really appreciate you all for finding ways to bring that life to the human soul to the stage in this new way, on these new stages. So when you're advocating, first, figure out what your goal is. Not what the solution is, but what the goal is. What is your problem? What is your goal that needs to be addressed? Then come up with at least one solution, possibly 2 or 3. And when you go into a legislator's office, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then ask them questions about what you told them. So first, tell them what your goal is. Tell them what your 3 proposed solutions are. Then go into some detail about why you think those 1, 2, or 3 solutions might address that goal. Then reiterate what you said, and then ask them questions. What they think about the goal, what they think about the solutions that you're proposing, whether they've got some other ideas about how to address the goal, and make it precise so that they have to react to what you're suggesting. Don't just leave it at the goal. That would be my suggestion. Another suggested thing in advocacy is remind the decision maker why the arts matter in their own lives. Ask them what their favorite song was in high school. Ask them about the movie that, you know, changed their life. Ask them what song got them through high school or got them through, ask them what song they wanted to play at the birth of their child. Ask them what their favorite relative is who tells stories. Ask them about storytellers inside their own family. Really connect with them the idea that the arts is absolutely fundamental to our development as a community. That's going to be important because unfortunately, I find that many folks in government don't really value the arts as a anchor institution of our community. And many feel that the arts should just go get donations from individuals and be done with it, that there shouldn't be public funding of the arts. I know I'm preaching to the choir in that you all don't believe that that's true. This is absolutely fundamental anchor institution work that is so, so important to the vitality of our communities. So those are my, you know, my major points with regard to advocating when you come to the Capitol. Have your 30-second version, and then also have your 5-minute version, and then also have your 15-minute version. So the 30-second version is, here's the goal, and here's what I suggest that we do about it. What are your thoughts? That quick. And rehearse it. Rehearse your 30-second, rehearse your 5-minute, and rehearse your 15-minute. If you can get past the 30-second to the 5-minute, then you can start expanding it out. So here's the goal. Here's what I suggest we do to respond to the goal. But here are 2 other ideas. Do you have additional ideas that we should be exploring? And then your 15-minute version is, here's the goal. Here are the 3 things. What do you think of those? And also, what was the song in high school that got you through? That poet got you through. What, you know, what's who is the storyteller in your family? That storyteller made you feel connected to your family. What is the painting that hangs over your grandparents' mantelpiece? Or what is that painting behind your desk? Who is the artist? What's your connection to them? Make the connection with them. If you can get to the 15-minute mark, that's where you can start making connections with them in their real lives about what art means to them. And then they won't forget that you had the meeting. So that's my 101. I hope those were good tips.
Those were great tips. And I could see Cookie taking notes there. That was just really, every time we have a guest speaker, you bring a different piece of the story. So I think everybody's going to be leaving this room trying to remember this favorite song that made them, help them through high school and their first breakup and all those things. So Senator Eckhart, that was really, really priceless. Thank you. And for all of those who have Senator Eckhart, we have a meeting with her tomorrow afternoon from 4:30 to 5. So we got to be working on our 30-second, our 5 minutes, and our 15 minutes.
Oh, that's great. So I used to direct in New York. I was a director in New York for a period of time. So what I'll do is we'll just like have, we'll have a flash rehearsal. Because you have me at hello. I mean, I'm an easy audience. I mean,
right.
Y'all can come in and advocate to me, but you know that you've already got me. So yeah, let's do a little flash rehearsal.
That's really, and I literally just was in another representative's office this morning on my way to open up the summit, and lo and behold, there's original artwork on the wall. And the very first thing the receptionist said was, look at all these beautiful paintings. This is who did them. we want to make sure. So for any of you who are listening and you go into your legislator's office and there are not paintings on the wall, ask them. We've literally driven artworks from Dallas representatives down to the Capitol so that they're surrounded by student work. Offer your own work. I mean, if you go into an empty office, make sure you don't leave without a commitment to hanging art on into their
Great
office.
idea.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I will play the role of a curmudgeonly legislator who thinks art is dumb. How about that? I'll be like the
All right.
mark you've ever encountered.
We have our homework cut out for us now. Thank you very much, Senator Eckhart. We're going to move quickly here through our thing and really applaud standing ovation. And we look forward to ongoing conversations. And we look forward to your helping us communicate to the full Senate on the important role the arts play. So
very much looking forward to it, y'all.
Welcome and thank you. Speaking of advocating, now we're going to take the bigger leap to lobbying and the growing from advocating, which is speaking up and educating and informing, providing information, why the arts are so important, economic impact, et cetera, to lobbying. And lobbying is we start to get more explicit about making a direct ask. And a direct ask meaning, I want you as my legislator to please take action on this bill, help us pass this, make this appropriation, et cetera. And there's no better person to turn this discussion over to and to go over and review the Texans for the Arts legislative agenda for this session than our lobbyist, our government relations specialist and appropriation specialist, Shannon Gangurdy. Shannon holds a law degree from Washington College of Law at American University, and she worked for 17 years as a staffer in the Texas legislature, serving as legal counsel for Senator Jane Nelson, and then under Senator Nelson's leadership with Health and Human Services Committee, and then with the Senate Finance Committee, and really is an expert in her field. And we have enjoyed working with her tremendously. I think I have the year right, Shannon. Her last day of service was October 31st, 2017. Do I have the year right? All right. And we had her working with us the next day on November 1st, 2017. So really been a productive relationship and I've learned so much. So we're going to pass this over to Shannon and I'll be happy to provide any sort of backup information as well. Shannon, welcome.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I think everybody got muted, so I'm back on. I have no idea where it got muted, so I'll just a little bit start over. I just want to say thank you to everyone participating today. There's one of me, there's one of Anne. We are typically in the Capitol. Right now, we're a little bit more virtual, and we're knocking on doors, going from member to member, but having kind of this team behind us to go to every office and kind of be our advocates is really a help. So we appreciate that. There must be a theme today of going through kind of like the numbers. I think Senator Eckhart had three tips. I actually have four, but I want to put into context what Senator Eckhart said. She talked about coming in with a solution. So I really thought about the meetings that you all are going to have, and I know some are going to be longer than others, but the way that I would address the meetings that you all are attending is really, I would break it into four parts. And so the first two are really setting the stage for the second two, which are your asks and the solutions that Senator Eckhart talked about. So the number one thing I would do at the beginning of your meeting is set the stage as to why the arts matter. And Senator Eckhart talked a little bit about that in terms of why the arts matter from a healing perspective, why the arts matter to an individual, to a community, and to a state. And I think those are really important. I think stories and narratives and creating that connection go a really long way. But I also want to add a second kind of level of why the arts matter, because you really want to know your audience, and you're talking to state legislators, and state legislators care about the budget, and they care about whether or not we can afford to pay for the things that we're asking them to pay for. And so you all would have received, I think yesterday, and if that's right, or today through email, a document that looks like this. I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to hold up my virtual version here. And it's got the Texans for the Arts and Texas Cultural Trust logos at the top. This is actually what we're handing out to the Senate Finance Committee today during the testimony on the Texas Commission on the Arts. And so if you look at the top box of this document, it lays out some pretty impressive economic numbers. And I know that there's going to be testimony later today specifically on these numbers, but I wanted to highlight that document and the fact that $6.1 billion in annual taxable sales are created by the arts industry. That's pretty phenomenal, and something that many members may not realize what a power player the arts are in driving economic activity. 380 million in annual sales tax revenue. We used these numbers last session. There were different numbers because they were based on different years, but we were told by members that these numbers really resonated with them and really kind of helped push us over the edge in terms of getting funding. So, and again, you'll see the 900,000 Texans employed in creative careers. And so there's really a story to tell. You may have a different story on the community level in terms of economic development. You feel free to tell that story, but you want to make sure that your legislature understands that we're not just arts for art's sake. It's nice. It's not just nice to have the arts, but the arts are part of economic activity. And also, as Ann mentioned, one of the things Senator Nelson, who's the chair of Senate Finance, said yesterday in front of the Finance Committee was she felt one of her goals was to make sure that we are rekindling the economy, that the budget helps rekindle the economy. And as Ann said, if the arts are not here at the end of COVID, we cannot help you rekindle the economy. And so that takes me into number two. Number two is talking about the impact of COVID. How has COVID impacted your community from an arts perspective? Has your, either the organization you're involved with or organizations in your community had to furlough or lay off individuals? Obviously, ticket sales are down or non-existent. Fundraising dollars, whatever your story is, tell the story of the COVID impact. Because as I get to our solutions, it's really, we're really laying the groundwork as to why we need the state to step in right now more than ever to help the arts be there to help rekindle the economy. So they go hand in hand. We matter. Here's why we matter. Here's what happened in COVID. And here's why we may not be able to continue to help matter as much as we did pre-COVID. So that lays into number three. And number three and number four are asks. And if you look, you would have received a Senate version and a House version. So pay attention when you're meeting with the member. If they're a senator, you really want to speak off of the Senate version. And if you're talking to a House member, you want to speak off the House version. And here is why. The Senate and the House both introduced what's called base budgets. They were introduced a few weeks ago. And the Senate version is different from the House version as it relates to the arts. And so, unfortunately, the Senate version cut our cultural district program. We were appropriated $10 million last session. So the current biennium program is $10 million. The Senate base budget appropriated $6 million for that program. So it's a cut of $4 million. And so our number one ask when you're meeting with the senator is to restore the $4 million cut to the cultural district program so that our appropriation totals $10 million. And when you talk about cultural districts, especially if you're part of a cultural district, you're lead of a cultural district, whatever it might be, maybe start off by explaining what a cultural district is and how they help create jobs, how they improve quality of life, what they provide a community. Talk a little bit about the cultural district. Talk about if you have received a grant through the cultural district program, what that grant has allowed you to do. I know we have a bunch of data that shows, and maybe Ann, you can talk about that in just a minute, that dollars invested in the cultural district program actually produce more revenue when it comes to sales tax revenue. So it's a big bang for your buck. If you're the legislature, invest in the cultural districts, and the gains will be more significant than the costs. So it is listed as number three on the Senate. I'm sorry, it's listed as number one on the Senate document. It's the number one request. As I said, that's because they reduced our budget. On the House document, which you can't see, but you can kind of see it from far away, we actually listed the cultural district as the number two ask because the ask on the House side is maintain our funding. So I just want to point that out. I would talk about that second on the House side, and I would talk about that first on the Senate side. The other ask is related to COVID relief. So there was a small amount of money that came from Congress last year through the CARES Act. I think it was a little bit over $1 million that went through Texas Commission on the Arts, and it was distributed very quickly to art advocacy groups that were impacted by COVID. And so we worked during the interim to try and ask the governor and legislators to use some of the coronavirus relief fund to support art entities that were, we are saying, disproportionately impacted. Arts were some of the first to close. Arts are going to be some of the last to come online. I'm sure Scott can tell you the impact here in a minute about the hotels and the impact they've been enduring, but we do believe that the arts are really part of the disproportionately impacted industries. And so if we, I'm sorry, there's like things happening in my house at the same time. The joy of virtual panels. So if we were not successful in being able to use coronavirus relief fund for relief. And the reason we were given was that because of the economic downturn, they were using the coronavirus relief fund to try to shore up the budget as much as they can. They were trying to plug holes. Well, now there's some more resources potentially coming down from Congress. The Texas Commission on the Arts received a $5 million appropriation last session. That was one time. And so our ask is, we're asking for one-time grants for arts, art nonprofits, art industry that have been impacted by COVID. I would not get into the revenue source to pay for it. If you get asked, the Texas Commission on the Arts has a request for a little over $1 million in their request they're going to submit. You could also propose the $5 million that was one time last session. You could also propose potentially more money coming down from the federal government for COVID relief. There are a variety of sources. Our ask is to use any of those sources to provide grants for our industry. So Anne, or do you have in front of you to talk a little bit about some of those statistics for the cultural districts? And also if you could talk about the hotel occupancy tax numbers. I know that we've worked with some outside groups to kind of get an analysis of the hotel occupancy tax. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay, and thank you, Shannon, for that great overview. As we proceed from this conversation, you're going to be hearing from really the experts in the field, both about the hotel occupancy tax and the Texas Commission on the Arts. So we'll defer some of that there. But just an example, I think, of some of the facts and figures that Shannon was referencing that we used in the last session, because they're figures from 2016 and 2017. And I'm going to rattle these off, but they do show what the impact was. This particular example was the Kimball Art Museum, which received TCA funding, a funding grant for marketing and communication around that exhibit in 2017 to promote the Monet, the early years, which was a blockbuster blockbuster exhibition. Total attendance over 100,000. 67% of the visitors resided outside of Tarrant County, and of those, 77% said they came primarily to see the Monet show. They supported 117 total jobs, and in 15 weeks, visitors spent $10.8 million locally as part of their visit to the museum. Those kind of important nuggets really matter when you get a legislator that's really close to home. But you see these in small communities and large communities where there's a direct impact of people making a trip to come to your community to spend the night and to partake in basically contributing to the hotel tax, and also partaking in that really important thing about the arts and tourism. That's just an example, Shannon. In terms of the hotel tax, I think I'll defer some of that definitely to our conversation with Scott Josloff. We do know the comptroller released in a report last week, and that the leisure and hospitality industry was the hardest hit industry across the state, and arts and performing arts are defined as part of that, with a decrease in hotel occupancy tax of 42%. So these are really damaging figures that are having a direct impact on the capacity of organizations to stay alive. So does that help, Shannon? Did that answer a question?
Yes, and I also mentioned there was a question about whether or not you could screen share or share your screen with these documents. And I think that's a great idea. If it helps, I mean, I would do what makes you feel the most comfortable. If it helps you walk through the numbers, then absolutely this document is yours to use. We're using the same document with today in testimony. As you meet with members, the more members see these documents, they start to get more familiar with the numbers and they become more ingrained in the conversation. So our goal is for you to use these documents for what works best for you.
Yes, so thank you very much, Shannon. We're going to segue now to our conversation about more details about the hotel occupancy tax. And we're going to be opening with sharing a video that we made that sort of breaks down the hotel tax. And why is this important right now? I mean, as you'll hear from our next two speakers, the impact of hotel tax and the allowable use of up to 15% for the arts is a significant investment in the arts communities. Municipalities make the decisions as to how these funds are distributed as allowed by law in Chapter 351 of the Texas Tax Code. But what is really important and why we produced this video was really to show and educate people about misconceptions about how the tax works, to really sort of break down understanding, because the more you know about the tax when you meet with your legislators, the more informed decisions that you can help them make. And the more important it is that we want to be at the table with our hotel leaders, our tourism leaders, our municipal leaders, and work on this together, especially with the vaccine. And as the pandemic wanes, we hope, and we're starting to come back together again, being at the table at the arts is critical. We've been hearing that is of paramount importance. So I'd like to turn it over to Chris, if you could cue up the toolkit video, please. Thank you, Scott, or thank you, Chris, for sharing that. And a huge shout out to the Houston Endowment for funding this project that has really been instrumental and is an amazing toolkit that we'll be working with for years. Check it out, www.hottoolkit.com. Is a dynamic site. Post your questions and we will continue to answer them. I'd like now to turn it over to two speakers who are really instrumental in this whole process around the hotel tax. And one of them is Scott Josloff, the CEO of the Texas Hotel Lodging Association. Scott joined the association in 2000, and since that time, THALA, as we call it, has grown from the 4th largest state association to the largest hotel association in the nation. Scott holds a master's degree in public administration and has been a licensed attorney for 25 years. I'd also like to introduce who will speak after him, Bill Longley, who is the chief counsel for the Texas Municipal League. I lost my notes. Bill, you may have to introduce yourself. I know you've got a law degree. I've got piles of paper here, but
that's a great introduction as it is, and perfect.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to the two of you to really sort of break down, how we approach the legislative session. Scott, a little bit of a just background, and again, how we all work together and are going to work together coming out through the pandemic. Scott.
All right. Ann, Cookie, and all my esteemed friends, and my dear colleague, Bill Longley. It is great to be with you this morning. I will tell you that I've been in my capacity, as Ann noted, for just over 20 years as president and CEO of THLA, the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association. And I'm proud of a lot of what we've been able to do over the last 20 years. I'm proud of the fact that we have passed every bill that we have offered at the Texas legislature, between 2 and 8 pieces of legislation every legislative session. I'm proud that we've defeated every bill that we have opposed for the last 20 years at the Texas legislature. But the thing I probably am most personally proud of in my 20-year tenure is the partnership that we now have with the arts. That's something that really, to me, is transformative. Transformative for my industry, hopefully transformative for the arts industry, and for all the people that depend on all of us. When I started talking to the arts folks, my colleagues Cookie and Ann and Boyce Cabanas and their progeny, we talked about the concerns on both sides. And Cookie, in her so shy format, indicated that she had just a slight concern that hoteliers were not fully supportive of arts funding, that at the local level, the state level, could she trust that we were there to support arts funding, or were we there to try to decrease it or to make it harder for arts to get funding through the local hotel tax? In turn, my hoteliers, they were concerned, were our friends in the arts industry there to try to decrease funding for the Convention and Visitors Bureau or for the Convention Center, and would their actions result in, would they impact our viability as an industry? So we set up a meeting between Boyce and Cookie and Ann and I and other leaders from Texans for the Arts. And what we learned after talking is we really didn't want to do any harm to each other. That we agreed on 95% of all the legal issues regarding hotel tax for the arts. And if you can get to 95% on any public policy issue, that's a great success. And so what we did as a result was that we looked at how can we support each other. If we agree on 95%, we actually want to do no harm, and it is in our interest to support each other. What does that look like? What does success look like? So we worked on an armistice, and that armistice started with a memorandum of understanding saying, if an arts entity applies for local hotel tax, what are the rules? What does the hotel industry say are the rules? What does the art industry indicate that they agree that these are the rules indeed under state law? We came up with an agreed to understanding, a MOU, for the first time on arts funding from the hotel tax. That it's not only about room nights, as Ann Graham would say. It's not just heads in beds. It's more than that. There's a lot of ways that arts can show an impact on a local community that directly impacts tourism and the hotel industry. And we outlined examples of all those different ways, and there's lots of ways that we look forward to discovering. We agreed to a no harm, do no harm commitment on all bills at the legislature and at the local level. So if there's a local issue at a city council, we're going to be there to try to support continued, not try to support, to ensure continued funding for the arts, and funding that can grow up to that 15% maximum at any local community within the state. At the same time, trying to make sure that the arts are working with our hoteliers, that any sort of funding for the arts does not have a direct impact on the viability of the hotels, and funding for the CVB and for the convention centers. We agreed to support each other's legislative priorities at the Capitol. So if it's tourism funding at the state level, the more funding we have to promote Texas as the destination, the more funding we'll create in hotel activity, which generates funding for the arts. As you know, the tide rises for all. And so when you go to the Capitol this during your virtual session, I want you to know that you have the largest state hotel association in the country. 5,500 hotels from across Texas. We're there in your corner. We are supporting and we believe in what you do. We are personally and professionally grateful for your contribution. Funding of the arts right now is more important than ever. And I know you've heard that from every speaker. From the hotel industry, we're suffering. We're, as you saw, 40% down in projected revenues. 70% of our employees have been laid off or furloughed. Will we come back? Hell to the yes. But what the timing on that is, you know, it depends a lot on the speed that we can get vaccination and herd immunity and all of that. And that process delays our growth, our recovery, and it delays yours. And so Godspeed on all of that, and know that we understand the importance of the arts, that you are right there with us, and our recovery is your recovery, and your recovery is our recovery. And I always like to say, folks are not staying in our Texas hotels because our towels are so fluffy that the guests can barely close their suitcases when they leave. They are coming because of the fabric of what our communities have to offer: the arts, the culture, the history, the type of experience that you can only get in that particular community because it's unique and it's special. And so I wish you a wonderful virtual Capitol visit today. And to use a well-heard hotel promise, we'll leave a virtual light on for you.
Thank you so much, Scott. I've learned so much about Chapter 351. I really have, and enjoy this very important working relationship with Texas Hotel Lodging. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bill Longley.
Great. Thank you so much, Ann. And Scott, it's always a tough act to follow. I've unfortunately had to do it a few times in my career, but here's another. It's great to be with you all today. Again, my name's Bill Longley, and I'm General Counsel with the Texas Municipal League. Let me give you a little bit of background on TML. We're a nonprofit association of cities from all across the state. We've been around for over 100 years and focus primarily on educating our members, training, legal information, legislative information, and advocacy, among other responsibilities. There are just over 1,200 cities in the state of Texas. Not all, of course, have hotel occupancy taxes, but 1,162 at my last count are members of TML. And so those range from cities of all sizes. You know, some of the largest cities, all the big cities in the state of Texas, so some of the largest cities in the country, to our member with the lowest population is 27 people. I kind of doubt they have any hotels there, but I could be wrong. So needless to say, we have a very diverse membership and a lot of really unique communities all across the state of Texas. I've been at TML for a little over 12 years and can unequivocally say that the hotel occupancy tax has always been a hot topic and a source of, sometimes a source of confusion for city officials. So we make ourselves available for city officials to call with legal questions, including on hotel occupancy taxes. I want to mention a couple of things just to the group today. One thing we've really been working on with regard to hotel occupancy taxes is getting the word out to city officials about the need to comply with annual reporting requirements. Back in 2017, a bill passed, House Bill 1221, that requires annual reporting of city uses of hotel occupancy taxes. I know Anne and the Texans for the Arts were instrumental in getting that legislation passed. And of course, the goal of that, I think, was to strengthen arts organizations' access to all of that information, just so you can equip yourselves with the knowledge of what cities are using that revenue on, and how that can benefit your organization. So we have been, over the last, I guess, couple of months, the window is open every year from January 1st to February 20th to get those reports in. And we've been sending out weekly email alerts to our members just to encourage them to get that information in. So cities are required to report how much hotel occupancy tax revenue is spent on the various permissible uses, including, of course, promotion of the arts. So I'd encourage everyone here to, if you don't already have that information or get that information directly from your city, to go take a look at the report that's filed with the comptroller's office to give you an idea of the lay of the land with your city and the use of those funds for the arts. And finally, I'd like to just mention the excellent hot toolkit that we saw the video on, put together by Texans for the Arts, that can be used to really demystify the hotel occupancy tax statute and process. I think it's extremely useful for city officials, and it's really cool from a city perspective that there's a section of the toolkit that's written from the city official's perspective, and has a rundown of the resources that would be useful to city leaders, whether they're city employees or elected officials. So I'd encourage all of you participating in the summit today to reach out to your local leaders at City Hall regarding hotel occupancy taxes, and even share that toolkit with those leaders. It's not only a great overview of the local hotel occupancy tax generally, but a good way to put arts front and center before local officials to promote the community and promote economic development through tourism. So please do reach out to your city leaders to determine how y'all can have a really beneficial relationship. And I want to just echo, I listened a little bit to Senator Eckhart's comments before us, and she's absolutely right. Arts can be an anchor institution in the community, and really make cities special places to live all over the state. So keep up all the good work, and thanks again for letting me be a part of this today.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you for that affirmation also on the toolkit. And just for all of our participants, the data that Bill mentioned, the comptroller's annual report, is available on the toolkit. If you go to the arts pillar, I think it's the article, it's the first step. There are links provided, and you can look up your community, and it identifies the top 5 uses. And also there's another chart there that shows exactly over the last 3 years what your community has contributed to the arts, if they are using some of that for the arts. So the comptroller fields that research, and I know that Bill with the Municipal League reaches out to remind communities that they are responsible, legally responsible, to provide that information. The deadline, I think, is February 28th or 27th every year. It sounds like a funny date, but that is the date. And so we as arts leaders can be after our municipal leaders to make sure, especially if you go and you look up on the form on the toolkit and you don't see your city listed, that means they didn't report. So be a friend, let them know that that data is due. And it's also really important, as Bill said, for us building the case for the arts and working in partnership. So thank you so much for this 3-way partnership here, which has just is truly instrumental and life-changing for having a hotel tax to really help service the arts. And there aren't a lot of states that have the leadership and have a bill passed like this that has this impact. So thank you all for that work. We are absolutely on time. And I'm really pleased to move into our first break, our first art break. We're all in the arts here, and we knew this is a Zoom intensive world right now. So for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be turning this over to one of our board members, Dr. Michael Quantz, who's a professor of music at UT Rio Grande Valley. And he has, and I'm going to let him introduce his students, curated a 12-minute performance by his students, which will give us an opportunity to catch our breath, breathe, take some notes, and we'll be back punctually at 10:15, but don't leave your computer and certainly turn your volume up. And I want to turn it over to Dr. Quantz. And also, yes, as I said, a member of our board of directors and a very valued one. Michael?
Thank you very much, Anne. I'm very happy to be with everyone this morning. This video that you're going to see presents three of our students from UTRGV playing quite a nice variety of pieces. The first performer is Matt Mujica, and he is going to play Alba de Tormes by the Spanish composer Federico Moreno Torroba. Very evocative, very jazz influenced 20th century piece. The next performer is Raul Trevino, and he's going to play a standard piece in the classical guitar repertoire, which is by Aitor Villalobos. And that piece is one of his etudes. It's kind of got a dark and mysterious beginning, and then a pretty nice melodious afterthought after that. Lovely melody and accompaniment. Then following that, we have Hector Aguilar playing a piece by the great Spanish composer Joaquin Rodrigo, who composed the uber famous Concierto de Aranjuez, whose second movement is just one of the most beautiful, heart-rending pieces you ever heard. And that piece is very evocative of Spanish kind of characters, where it's very theatrical, where certain musical motives are almost a presence on stage. And then we conclude with another piece performed by Matt, which is an arrangement by the great Mexican composer Manuel Maria Ponce of La Pajarera. It's a very famous folk tune about a bird. And it's a lovely kind of capper on all this. So please do turn your volume up. Anne, you took the words right out of my mouth. My entreaty and admonition is to breathe.
Bravo, bravo, students. Thank you all so much. And Dr. Quantz, thank you for your beautiful teaching and for working with these students. And we're really honored to have them. Appreciate your guidance and wisdom and you being a board member. I know you're always teaching. It's always hard to make meetings, and the role that you play as an educator and a teacher is just paramount. So thank you so much. And we will have, that's recorded, and we will, with your permission, post that on our YouTube channel as well and give the students a shout out. So thank you very, very much. We are moving on to our next session, and we're just on time here. I want to just reiterate, jumping back to our conversation with the Texas Hotel Lodging Association and Texas Municipal League about the toolkit. Just a reminder again that that's the standalone website, toolkit, www.toolkit.com, and also linked on our website at www.texansforthearts.com, and is available, and we really encourage all of you to use that. And what we also sort of didn't formally frame, and I can frame here, is the legislative agenda around the hotel tax. And it really is, as Scott had mentioned, monitoring legislation that is proposed, bills that are proposed, and some that we may want, some that we may not want, and just being very mindful of the pressures on the hotel tax. Municipalities are looking for other ways to fund projects. They look at that pool of resources. It's down now, but hopefully we'll be regrowing again. And we're just always wanting to be mindful that tourism is a major component, that we're not making the pie smaller and smaller, but that we are really protecting the resources that we need, again, to contribute to tourism for the arts. So just wanted to reiterate that. Now we're going to be segueing to our other primary legislative agenda item, which you've heard already a little bit about, and that is the Texas Commission on the Arts, the state agency's budget cut in the TCA's Cultural District program in the Senate, and level funding in the House, and wanting to protect that. But just to really share more about this, and this is again some of the information that you'll be sharing when you make your legislative visits, I want to turn it over to Anina Moore. Anina is the Director of Artist Services and Communications with the TCA, and she is presenting on behalf of Dr. Gary Gibbs, the Executive Director. He happens to be here in the Capitol today, waiting for the Senate Finance hearing to proceed, as he will be speaking formally as the head of the agency on their budget request. And that is literally ongoing as we speak. So a really important role he's required as the head of the agency to present. And then there's a group of us who will follow with public testimony later in the day. So I'd like to turn this over to Anina Moore. Anina?
Thanks, Anne. And I have a presentation here that is very closely based on Gary's presentation to the Senate Finance Committee meeting. So you will be seeing the most up-to-date information we have and requests that we have with this presentation. So Chris, I'll ask you to advance to the next page. So thanks to the Texas Cultural Trust and the Governor's Office of Economic Development and Tourism, we have a good sense of the arts economic impact on Texas. These figures that you see in this slide are new, and for calendar year 2019, the Texas Cultural Trust will be presenting on that in further detail. Yes, the arts impact on the statewide economy has grown by 30% over the past 10 years. I will point out that 2009 is the same year that we started designating cultural districts. And it's no coincidence that the photos on this slide feature activities happening from two of our 48 cultural districts. So we'll remind you that in addition to the overall impact for state tax revenue, the cultural districts have a huge impact locally as well. And so we'll move on to the next slide. Our agency provides many services aside from our grants, but we're primarily known for our grants. And we are proud of the percentage of our budget, which you can see in the figure on the left, that goes out across the state to many of you in grants to arts organizations. In our grant making, we strive for equity, including geographic diversity. So you'll see the figure on the right is representative of how many districts we have provided funding to for fiscal year 20. That year was September 1st, 2019 through August 31st, 2020, just to give you a sense of that time frame. So we provided funding to 170 cities in almost every district, and in fact, every Senate district. So yes, when you go to your legislators, you can let them know that over 91% of our budget has gone out into local hands through the form of grants. Chris, if you could advance the page. So we strive for equity, including geographic diversity in our grant making and in our designation of cultural districts. There are 48 cultural districts designated across the state. We are in the middle of starting our next round of designations through an application process. It's very easy to think about some of our larger cultural districts in larger cities like Houston, but that is not the extent of these cultural districts. Many of the districts are based on unique elements in communities, in smaller communities like Canadian up in Hemphill County in the Panhandle, and mid-sized communities like Waco. We continue to see strong interest in the designation program, and being designated as a cultural district allows the arts organizations in that cultural district to access the separate cultural district project grant. And that is the grant program that is impacted by the Senate, the cut that Shannon and Ann have discussed already. So there is a quote down there about businesses and the impact that businesses and the arts see together from cultural districts. It's a little cut off on my screen. You can go on ahead. So this slide addresses the exceptional item number 1 request that we have in the Senate. So we, again, as Shannon said, and Ann has said also, the proposed budgets currently are different in the Senate and the House. And so the distinction here in the Senate is that our first item of business is asking for restoration of full funding to the Cultural District Projects grants. And as a reminder, the Senate's current working budget removes $2 million per year from that item, so $4 million over the biennium. And so we are advocating for restoration of this funding as a way to help the organizations and the cultural districts themselves, the organizations that are in the cultural districts, to recover from the pandemic and continue to generate economic growth and cultural tourism across the state. So yes, I know that as has been said several times, we are preaching to the choir here, but it is important still to remind legislators and policymakers that the arts will be recovering from the effects of the pandemic for a long time. And there is a phrase that I think that you all have seen. These organizations were among the first to close their doors and will be among the last to open. So that is something to keep in mind as you speak to legislators. And that is why this slide is in our presentation to senators. We want to remind legislators, you know, of the devastation that this industry is undergoing. Yes, and then just to give you a sense of the level of devastation, the Texas arts industry has been the third most strongly impacted arts industry among the 50 states. And this is according to a Brookings Institute study that was issued in August. So you can see the loss of jobs shown just between April and July in 2020, and the loss of sales. So moving on to the next slide. Effectively on that basis, again, we are asking for a restoration of the 5% reduction of funds that we, along with many other state arts agents or state agencies in Texas, went through towards the end of over summer 2020. So this was a reduction of funds that was conducted as a savings measure in the pandemic. We are asking for those funds to be restored. It was about $1.2 million. And we will use those funds to help stabilize arts organizations and help them recover from the pandemic. And yeah, that's I'll point out, this is our second item in the Senate. It is the first item in the House, again, because the House did not cut $4 million from the cultural tourism funding. So those are two differences between the Senate and the House items. And I want to remind everyone that this legislative process is kind of long. It feels like the session has already been in place for a while. It always feels like a very long process. The process will only be final on June 20th or around June 20th. That's the governor's deadline to either sign or veto legislation. So there's a lot of time still left in this process. With that, I will turn it over to Anne to introduce Fiona.
Great. Thank you, Anina. Thank you so much. And I also just want to reiterate that when Gary's presentation that he's doing and that Anina just did about repurposing the 5%, you heard Shannon a little bit earlier saying we're also going to be pushing the boundaries on that with the Senate and the House, and that is looking for alternative ways. The 5% is one way. The $5 million that was in our budget last year that was not utilized, that's another one. CARES money. So we're going to try to push that envelope and really seek additional support in addition to the cultural district funding, one-time support. So thank you again, Anina. That's really helpful to see the geographic spread as well and know that we're reaching all the Senate districts. And we made available on the email that we sent out to all our members just a list of all the cultural districts and whose legislative districts they're in, so that you can actually, when you're going to go to a meeting with your senator, look up and see whether or not they have a cultural district in their district, which is really important. Now I'd like to introduce a great member of our board of directors who was really helpful in orchestrating the summit, Fiona Bond, who is the executive director and founder of Waco. Oh, I should know that one. Creativity, the arts. And Fiona had the accolades of being designated the Wacoan of the Year this year for her tremendous leadership in sparking the art really as being a transformative part of the culture and art scene in Waco, just really covering entrepreneurship, innovativeness, for-profit, nonprofit, bringing everybody together. So without further ado, Fiona's going to share a little bit about the Waco Cultural District and its importance in the community. Fiona.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you, Anina, I learned a ton from hearing your presentation. I know Gary will be doing an amazing job at Senate Finance Committee. Thank you, Cookie, our panelists and speakers today. I've already learned a ton. I find this inspiring. I hope everyone that's on this summit is getting a chance just to feel how much of a boost this is when we all get to meet together in this way. So I get the opportunity to talk a little bit about the cultural district investment from our perspective as a cultural district. Waco was designated a cultural district in 2016. And for us at local level, it has been one of the best tools for coalescing support and programming across arts, business, education, local partners interested in economic development, around arts programming, and also destination building. And it is, particularly during the pandemic, that has created partnerships that have proved to be strong and lasting even in tough times. We talk in Waco about the one more factor, that in Waco, when people attend events, arts events, like festivals, performances, exhibitions in our downtown cultural district, what we discovered from doing some economic research was that people coming to events in this core spend approximately 3 times more than they do if they go to something that is, for example, on the university campus or further out and removed from our downtown area. Why is that? It's because when people come to our downtown cultural district, they will buy meals, they will buy drinks, they will meet up with friends, they will go to a store, they will maybe have a night in a hotel. So the knock-on impact of that for our economy has been huge, and we've measured that it is 3 times more than when we present arts programming outside our cultural district. Not surprisingly, the pandemic has devastated our downtowns and our destination-oriented growth. And in fact, our cultural district funding from the last legislative session actually allowed us to address that directly. We were able to use those funds that would have been for a festival in our downtown area to establish makeitinwaco.com, which is an online marketplace for Waco-based makers, performers, arts-based businesses. And it's allowed a lot of them, it's been a lifeline. It has allowed a lot of them to carry on generating revenue during the pandemic, and has been very gratefully received by our partners as well as the organizations directly impacted. And as we emerge from the pandemic, we predict that cultural district funding is going to be more, not less important. We've already accelerated the process whereby we can see that people can choose where they live, work, and visit. I mean, the fact that we're all doing this virtually means that, physical presence takes on a whole new dimension now. And so as we try to kickstart our downtown economies, investment in cultural district projects and programs is going to be all the more important as a really powerful way to differentiate our communities, enhance the message that our downtowns are back in business, building and rebuilding our destinations, and also connecting and reconnecting. This is something which I don't think can be underestimated. The arts offer not just a catalyst for igniting economic recovery, but also a really powerful tool force for reconnecting our communities post-pandemic and post all the divisive currents that have characterized the past 12 months. The arts have superpowers to remind us what we have in common, and are probably the single most cost-effective way that the state can invest in cultivating confidence and connectivity that is essential for restoring confidence in society and the economy and rebuilding the economy. It's a fantastic way of building common purpose and pride at local level, and also having fun. And don't forget, when you're talking to your legislators, this is an amazing opportunity to connect on a personal level. And Sarah Eckhart, I think, put that incredibly well. Find the thing that really makes them excited about getting back post-pandemic, what is it that they really look forward to seeing in the cultural districts that, that they support. In Waco, cultural district investment is also a lever for other investment. And so for every dollar of public money that we invest in our cultural district, in 2019, we saw a further $17 invested from private and other sources that cascades into things like jobs and into you know, a whole knock-on cascade of economic activity that actually meant that that investment delivered a net positive return via state sales tax on the activity that was stimulated. That's true across the state. And that is a really powerful reason that we need to ask for cultural district funding to be reinstated at full level, because this is one kind of funding that delivers a net return on investment for the state. That is a really powerful message that we have and a big win for the arts. So it's a no-brainer. If we don't do this, our competitors across the nation certainly will. We are currently number 42 out of 50 states in the rank of arts support at state level per capita. And other states are already looking at how they invest smartly to make sure that they can reignite their economies. So if we don't get ahead of this game, then we are going to be left behind in Texas, and we definitely don't want that. You will be able to think of 101 other reasons that recovery of arts activity, live music, festivals, exhibitions, performances is going to be transformational for your community's recovery. And as you head into your legislative meetings, I encourage you to think about why that's important for the things your legislator is concerned about, what they love, what you've seen them at, and how you can invite them to be part of not just the economic activity that's stimulated, but also the fun.
Thank you so much, Fiona. I really appreciate your wisdom and have been to the cultural district in Waco a number of times, and just have always, it's different every time, and there's so much happening. And even in the pandemic, you found many ways to continue to bring the arts to everyone. So thank you on that front. Wrapping up kind of the conversation around the TCA cultural districts and also the hotel tax, we have a video that we've created, and Chris, would you now go live with the video?
I will. I just wanted to briefly say to everyone, thank you. There's a number of people who made this video possible. I want to thank Fiona, who just spoke from Creative Waco. She's a great part of the video. We had help from Randy Ham, the Executive Director of Odessa Arts, Todd Eric Hawkins at the Office of Cultural Affairs in Irving, Texas, Charlie Lockwood, Gabby Kane, and the rest of the Texas Folklife staff in Austin. So many people helped put this video together. And we've titled it, Why is Public Funding So Vital to the, or Why is Public Arts Funding So Vital to Texas? And the reason we titled that is because, as we've seen, we've gone over the two major issues that sort of generate revenue and how that revenue is reinvested in the arts. And as you make your asks today or in the coming days of your legislators, this is a great opportunity to celebrate what we do well, our creativity. We've gone and created a video as a digital leave behind, as helpful as information can be, whether it's in print or through email. This is a great way to sort of feel the power of the arts in our communities. So as we show it today, it lives live on the Texans for the Arts YouTube channel. We're going to put the link directly in the chat here afterwards, and you can absolutely feel free to direct your legislators and their staff to visit this video and to use it for your own promotional purposes in the coming weeks ahead. Without further ado, why public arts funding is vital to Texas.
This is a video they're showing everybody.
local entrepreneurs and innovators want to locate themselves in creative environments. As we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, our cultural district funding will help signal that Texas communities are open for business and hubs for activity.
Based on the Americans for the Arts 2015 Economic Prosperity Study, Dallas Arts District is a $396 million industry, tripling its impact in 5 years, which delivered $43.1 million in local and state revenue and attracted more than 4 million visitors. Cultural district funding for the Texas Commission on the Arts is critical now more than ever, in a time that we need to bring communities together, to attract artists and cultural enterprises to the community, encourage business and job development, address specific needs of a community, establish tourism destinations, preserve and reuse historic buildings, enhance property values, improve individual well-being, and foster local cultural development.
Entrepreneurs and businesses are increasingly able to choose where to locate. Quality of life and clustering of creative talent are becoming major factors in attracting talent in all sectors. If Texas does not take this emerging trend seriously, we'll find ourselves hemorrhaging talent to states and cities that are strategically and aggressively investing in their vibrant cultural districts as they seek to stand out in a crowded and battered post-pandemic economy. By turning $10,000 of TCA support into an estimated $500,000 of impact, we've helped businesses, added jobs, and grown our community's reputation as a destination.
Hotel occupancy tax has been the foundation of the success of arts and culture in the city of Irving, Texas. We are very fortunate enough to have elected officials who support the use of hotel occupancy tax for the promotion of arts and tourism, Mayor Rick Stouffer and the City Council of Irving. This 91,000 square foot Irving Arts Center is home to 5 galleries, 2 performing arts venues, classrooms, and meeting spaces. The state-of-the-art facility allows us the opportunity to use the hotel occupancy tax to promote the arts and tourism through the presentation and exhibition of national and internationally known artists. Hotel occupancy tax is also used for the preservation of 2 historical sites, the Ruth Payne House Museum and the Jackie Townsend Bear Creek Heritage Center, commemorating one of the first freemen communities in North Texas.
We want to live and work in a place that is attractive to us, that we have a sense of pride for, that people want to come here and stay. And that includes thriving community theaters, it includes art museums, it includes symphony, but most importantly, it really includes having a landscape that you can be proud of and that you can be happy on your drive to work and your drive home.
To summarize, arts funding through Texas Commission on the Arts delivers outstanding return on investment. And as we recover from a global pandemic, is more important than ever in getting Texas communities reactivated for success.
Bravo. Thank you very much, Chris, for masterminding that. And thank you for pulling together our various board members who are represented there for their leadership. Really appreciate all of that and the insights that you bring and that important information. Before we actually proceed to, and we're a little bit running behind schedule, I also just wanted to acknowledge 2 board members who just arrived in the room. I am in the Capitol, Jenny Teague and Kathy Neese Brown. Both drove in from Fort Worth today to testify at the Senate Finance hearing. So really happy to have them here. We're going to segue to another topic right now, which we haven't really mentioned yet, but it's equally as important. And that is, we talked a little bit earlier about the intersection of the arts and other aspects of our society. A paramount one that has been drawing significant attention for all the right reasons is the arts and health and the impact that that has, and very important across the sectors. And in addition to that is the arts and the military, and looking at the role that the arts can play in helping veterans and active duty servicemen and women in their helping them come back into civil society and civic society, and really having the tools and resources, helping with PTSD, and really using the arts as a tool to move forward with their lives. Their last session, we were able to secure a $250,000 addition to the TCA's budget to fund projects that were arts and the military, and these are funded under their Arts Create program, I believe, or Arts Respond, excuse me, or Nina, you can correct me there, under the Health and Human Services line. And we're really pleased to have a number of programs that have been funded by that, working with veterans and with active duty servicemen and women and their children. This is part of a larger national effort called Creative Forces, which you might have heard of, which is a national effort funded by the NEA and also other entities. So really important work. We have a guest today. I hope he has joined us, and that is Bill O'Connell. Bill, thank you for joining us. Bill is a former veteran, or is a veteran, a former active duty serviceman, and a Texas writer. And he has been part of ArtSpark Texas's project called the Inkstick Project, and really has a remarkable story to share about how writing and poetry has helped transform his life. These projects that he's referencing are specifically ones that have been funded by the TCA. So we applaud the TCA, we applaud the legislature for granting these funds. And welcome, Bill. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
If you want to share a little bit about your personal story and how you came to get connected to ArtSpark and the kind of writing that you do, and how being part of this program has really helped you out and been instrumental moving forward.
Okay, yes. It started for me probably about 5 years now. It was 5 years ago, and that's when I was diagnosed with PTSD. So as part of that, I was introduced to art therapy and things of that nature. And one thing led to another. I had an art therapist who introduced me basically to the program, which at the time under ArtSpark Texas, then VSA Texas, it was the reintegration project. And that was a probably 6-week-long writing workshop. And that was run by Cynthia Lindsay. She's been a wonderful writing coach. And it was a way to sort of transform my PTSD therapy journals into something that eventually made its way into the reintegration project, which was their publication. And, you know, I think that if it wasn't for that, I probably would have just stayed confined, you know, within my house. I was eventually medically retired from the Army because of my PTSD, and I just didn't see an outlet as that time frame approached. But through VSA Texas and these kind of programs, I eventually became a published writer. I've had 2 of my books became published last year, and you know, when I think about or read about the various benefits of the arts, of course, all of those are very, you know, noteworthy. But for me personally, it was a way to continue to bring out some of the things that I just needed to get out for my PTSD therapy. And it led to me developing my voice as a writer, which of course, when it all started, I didn't realize I had one. I can't really thank anyone enough, not just for the ability that it's given me to share my work and be published, but it's brought me into contact with a lot of great people. Like I already mentioned, Cynthia Lindsay, but also people like Clayton Bradshaw, and it's given me a greater appreciation for the arts in general, for people who are, you know, noteworthy in this area. For example, someone like Tim O'Brien, and the kind of person that I want to be, not just as a writer, but someone who, you know, is a survivor of PTSD, and someone who can, you know, sort of share my experience and my hope for others. And again, without that program that got me started and gave me the encouragement and the confidence to share my voice and my experiences, I just don't see how that would have happened.
That's very hard act to follow. I really appreciate you sharing that story. It reminds me the very first year that we attempted to get the 250,000, we actually asked for 500,000. And we had a Creative Forces music therapist present from Fort Hood to the Veterans Commission or the Veterans Committee in the Senate. And I would love to see if we could bring you in front of that committee and have them hear your story as well. They have both veterans as well as medical personnel in that commission and in that committee. And your words would really resonate, and I aim to follow up with you on that. So I really appreciate you sharing that story. And I know you could, what we would love to do is post on our chat there the names of your books too. So let's see if we can't get this. So thank you so much for joining us. And now we're going to be moving into I'm looking at my schedule here. I would like to welcome the Texas Cultural Trust, and they're going to share their new research and data to be included in their 2021 State of the Arts report. The Texas Cultural Trust has sought these resources and done this research for the past numbers of biennium. And we are pleased to work with them, and we work and use those numbers if you've already seen them being used. Important data to follow up with stories. And I would like to now turn it over to Jenny Perry, the Director of Programs, and Kenneth Franco, the Communications Manager with the Trust.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Texans for the Arts, for the incredibly important work that you do, and for this opportunity to get to speak with the advocates and share information. The Trust for over the past 25 years has been serving the Texas arts communities, and our mission is to be the leading voice for the arts and education advocacy and economic impact in Texas, while spotlighting the artistic excellence of our state. The Trust programs provide funding opportunities and increased arts access, in addition to tools and resources to support arts advocates. You can learn more about these programs on our website, but they include the Texas Young Masters, Texas Medal of Arts Awards, Arts Access, Texas Women for the Arts, Partners in the Arts, and ArtCan. And that's what I'm really going to focus on today. Through ArtCan, the Trust conducts research and publishes data that quantifies the economic, educational, and cultural impact of the arts in Texas. And our findings are published in the State of the Arts report, which we lovingly call the SOTAR. The Trust exists to amplify your work and provide resources to increase awareness and support for the arts and creative industries in Texas. The findings are unequivocal, highlighting the arts as vital to the development of young minds and a strong economy. So in this report, we continue to analyze the economic impact of the arts in Texas, including the arts and culture industries, economic and creative careers, the impact of Texas tourism and cultural districts, and the impact of the arts in education. Also, in this new 2021 report, will include more information about arts and health, including new findings on the power of the arts to our physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being. The correlation between arts and social emotional learning is reported with research-based evidence, especially now. The importance of students' social emotional well-being is a top priority. And finally, we evaluated issues of equity in education. Analysis of equity and access to arts education was conducted using TEA data based on student demographics, and the data articulates the disparities between students in marginalized communities. The report's purpose is really to help unify messaging, to provide evidence and data, and we encourage you to quote the data in the report. In every social media post, in every communication you have with policymakers, or as you speak with elected officials, you want them to hear a consistent message from all corners of the state about the importance and evidence behind the impact of the arts in Texas. So we did create key messaging, and the messaging includes the positive impact on our economy. In 2019, the arts and culture industries in Texas generated $6.1 billion. And I know we've talked about this already today, but that's a big number to report. $6.1 billion, and created $380 million in annual sales tax revenue. Nearly 900,000 Texans are employed in creative careers, and that is 1 in 15 jobs in Texas. We do have a document that has key messaging that Anne can share with you all later. This message was developed to help unify voices. The messaging includes 4 topics that are covered in the State of the Arts report and backed by research and data. The arts impact the Texas economy. The arts strengthen the Texas economy by preparing students for creative careers, generating significant tax revenue, and boosting tourism. The arts impact education in Texas. The arts are essential in providing a well-rounded education, and students who participate in the arts are better prepared to succeed in their careers and contribute to the Texas economy. Unfortunately, new research proves that access is inequitable for students in rural communities and students in high poverty schools. So we must protect access for children in marginalized communities. The arts impact social and emotional learning. By engaging in the arts, students develop more self-awareness and self-management, and they become responsible decision makers. They gain greater social awareness and stronger relationship skills. And the arts impact our health. The arts and creative arts therapies are demonstrating the ability to improve patients' overall health outcomes, treatment, and quality of life. And we have talked already about the COVID's devastating impact on the arts in Texas. And, you know, as Anina mentioned earlier, the Texas creative culture industries has grown by actually over 30% in the past 10 years. And just in 2 quarters, in 2020, we've seen an estimated loss of $2 billion in taxable sales created by the arts and culture industries, and $127 million estimated lost sales tax revenue, and 42% reduction of hotel occupancy tax. So public funding for the arts is critical to maintain the hope of restoring the vibrant economy, education, culture, and way of life that all Texans cherish. So the Trust is advocating for the arts this session, and these 3 top priorities that we're talking about today are the TCA funding and restoring cuts that were made to the Cultural District Grant Program and film incentives. We want to see film incentives back to 50 million that are currently in the base for 45 million. And we want to see changes in language to House Bill 434 and Senate Bill 473, which as currently written would remove the requirement for the one high school fine arts graduation credit and allow students to choose either one fine arts or one CTE credit to meet that high school graduation requirement. The Trust has a number of resources and tools for you all to use in your efforts. And one is the ArtCan Advocacy widget. It's a tool to communicate with your elected officials and school district leaders on issues related to the arts. And to access that widget, you can go to artcantexas.org. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kenneth Franco, the communications manager for the Texas Cultural Trust.
Thank you, Jenny. The Texas Cultural Trust has a number of resources available for arts advocates and champions. We'd like to share a few with you today. So to begin, we'd like to share with you the ArtCan map. This interactive map is a statewide data set displaying fine arts courses, fine arts teachers, district demographics, and campus demographics collected from the Texas Education Agency and the Texas Education Resource Center. In short, this map makes it easy to explore the arts education access in school districts and campuses around the state. A new iteration of this map is currently in the works that will allow you to sort by legislative districts and elected officials, as well as filter by campus demographics such as rural, urban, suburban, race, ethnicity, low, highest socioeconomic status, etc. Again, to access the ArtCan map, visit artcantexas.org. As Jenny referenced, we also offer ArtCan widgets. Essentially, we offer you the opportunity to email your state legislators and school officials directly using our ArtCan letter widget. These pre-written letters make it easy to identify your elected officials and message them about the issues of greatest importance to you. We currently have 3 different letters to choose from on our website. Visit artcantexas.org to send one today. We are also monitoring a select and curated list of bills during this legislative session. We are, in short, monitoring House and Senate bills that may impact or may potentially impact the arts education, and creative industries in Texas. To visit this bill tracker, visit the resource tab on our website and see what's on our radar. There, you'll be able to check out the status of the curated list of bills and also find the links to learn more about the filed legislation pieces. On a weekly basis, we also offer weekly arts advocacy messages. The Trust shares these weekly as call to actions with our members of the Arts Education Task Force. To learn more about this group, email jperry@txculturaltrust.org. Finally, we've heard a lot today about the State of the Arts report. We're excited to share that there's a lot more to share and additional findings that we're ready to provide you. We invite you to join the State of the Arts Council, which is an open assembly of arts, culture, and community leaders, and learn more about this report. Our next State of the Arts Council call will be a webinar on the report and will be held Thursday, February 25th from 10 to 11 a.m. Keep an eye out for an invitation from the Trust and our partners to join that call. Additional links and resources to support you in your advocacy work can also be found on artcantexas.org. Now, to contact us, feel free to reach us at jperry@txculturaltrust.org and kfranco@txculturaltrust.org. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you both, Jenny and Kenneth, for providing that information. Again, as we referenced, the data is data that we will historically use over the next 2 years, the next biennium, and becomes a very valuable source of research for us. And again, the numbers that we take on our legislative visits. So thank you for sharing that. We figured we've all been sitting here for a little bit. I don't know where you are, whether you're in your office, whether you're in your home, where you are virtually. But we actually have a choreographed dance and movement, get out of your seat and move around for about 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. We have a very special guest, Harrison Guy, the artistic director of Urban Souls, which is based in 5th Ward, Houston. In fact, 5th Ward just became a TCA cultural district. So he's got close ties with us, and he's affiliated with the 5th Ward Community Development Corporation, which actually does amazing work around the arts and incorporating arts and creative placemaking in their community. We would like to turn it over to Harrison. We want people to leave their cameras on and turn their music up and have Harrison get us moving and getting ready and stretched out for the next round of final wrap up for our summit today. So Harrison, can we put you on here?
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I like you said, I am in Fifth Ward. I'm actually in front of the Malcolm Marco piece by Birdie Samples behind me. It's a local artist here in Houston, and so I'm really excited to get us moving. All right, so we're going to start actually sitting down, and I tried to come up with something really fun and kind of like accessible to all people because I know settings like this, everyone's not comfortable moving. So hopefully this is something that everyone can jump into. I have a lot of history with teaching people who don't feel like dancing. So I think I can cover all ground here. So we're gonna start out with just some breathing to get us going. Yes, I know we're all breathing. We're gonna try to do it together simultaneously to get us all on the same page. All right. So I'm gonna get us a little music in the background. All right, we're gonna inhale for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna exhale. 1, 2, 3. Try that again. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. That feels good. I see your shoulders. Inhale. 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. One more. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. Now we're gonna do it. I want to hear it. Inhale. Exhale loud. I don't hear anything. Inhale. Good. Exhale. 2 more. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Real loud. Inhale. Exhale. Just light looks over the shoulder. Over. Over. Center. Over. Center. Over. And over. Center. To the shoulder. Nice. Shoulder. Center. Shoulder. Make circles. Rounding 1. Feels good on the neck. Again. Again. 1 more. Reversing, go the other way. Big circles. 1. And 2. And 3. And 4. Now let's take the shoulders to the front. Shoulders front. And front. 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 Nice. Front. Front. Now we're warming it up. Front. Front. Reverse it. Take it to the back. 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 Again. Back. Back. 2 more. Back. Back. Good. Take your arm, take it across the shoulder, and just pull it. Give it a nice little tug. And switch it to the other side. Oh, that feels good. All right, take the arms up. Give yourself a nice big hug. And hold. And release the arms back down where they came from. And just let them hang to the side. Don't forget to breathe like we did earlier. Arms up. Big hug. And hold. Arms down. And let them hang to the side. Let's try that twice more. Arms up. Up. And hug. And down. Let them hang to the side. We're going to take 1 more. Hug yourself as if it's the only hug you'll get today.
down.
Good. Now we'll stand up a little bit. All right. Still moving, get it going. I'm gonna roll down just a little bit. Try to touch your toes if you can. Take it back up. Arms go up. Arms go back down. Oh, that's nice. Take it down. Let's go slow. And take it up. Arms go up. There you go. And back down. We're gonna do that 2 more times. Take it down. Up. Arms go up. And down. Last one. And down. And it's up. Take the arms up. And down. Now we're going to get the heart going. Just bounce your feet together. Relax. Open the feet away from each other. Nice and wide. Beautiful. Feet together. Feet apart. Nice. All right, so your heart should be racing a little bit more than it did when we started. And something I have missed tremendously because of COVID is line dancing. So I don't know about you, but I really enjoy line dancing. We do it a lot in my family. So I thought we'd do a line dance today. It's something that's approachable and that we can all do. All right, so we're gonna do the cha-cha slide, but what's different about this one is that for each thing it tells you to do, you wanna try to do it differently than you would normally do it. So when it says stomp, you wanna find a new way to stomp. When it says hop, you wanna find a new way to hop. So that's change your arms, change your hands, change your direction. I'm gonna always face the front, but you can turn and do this in different ways. And this will really get us going, all right? All right, is that good? Can you hear that music?
Yep.
Slide part 2.
Here we go.
Featuring the Platinum Band. And this time, we're gonna get funky. 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 Everybody clap your hands. Clap your hands. Clap your hands. Now, we're gonna do the basic steps. To the left.
To the left.
Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. Right foot, let's stomp. Let's start. Cha-cha, real smooth.
1, 2, move your feet. 1, 2,
turn
move
it
your
out.
feet.
Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. Right foot, let's start. Left foot, let's start. Cha-cha now, y'all.
1, 2,
now it's
move
time
your
to
feet.
get funky. To the right now. Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. One hop. Right foot, 2 stumps. Left foot, 2 stumps. Slide to the left. like it never, never stop. Bring it to the top. One hop. Left foot now, y'all. Cha-cha, real smooth. 1, 2, move your feet. 1, 2, turn it out. Now, y'all. One hop this time. One hop this time. Reverse. Reverse. To the left. To the right. Reverse. 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 Cha now, y'all. 1. Cha-cha again. Cha-cha now, y'all. Cha-cha again. Turn it out. Two hops. Two hops. Right foot, let's start. Left foot, let's start. Charlie Brown. To the right. To the left. Now, y'all. Cha now, y'all.
All right. Did we all make it to the end?
I think we did. Thank you very much. I had people looking in the window. What was happening in this room? I think they were hoping that they were here too.
People are looking at my window that way too. This normally doesn't happen in here.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Harrison. And I really look forward to hearing what y'all do in Fifth Ward with the Cultural District and how that frames and maybe changes a body of work. I'm really excited to hear.
We're excited too. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you. And we're going to move on to a little bit more business. And we just really appreciate that break. And I feel better already. So nice to meet you, Harrison, and really appreciate it. See you soon. Thanks. All right, catching our breath. Now we're going to be moving sort of back to the theater world here. We have a brief video by the Texas Thespians, and the Thespians, a statewide organization focusing on the theatrical world and life of high school students, really using theater for both themselves and also a really strong advocacy component. They have an advocacy committee, both at the parent level and also at the student level. When we go to Washington, D.C. for National Arts Advocacy Day, we almost always have a thespian in the group with us, articulate, talented, strong-willed, and really terrific advocates. And they have created a video for us to share. We did an advocacy training last summer, a virtual training, and are just excited to hear this resonate with the thousands of young people that are part of the Texas Thespians. So Chris, please hit the video. Thank you.
Texas Thespians, an affiliate chapter of the Educational Theater Association, is one of the largest chapters in the nation. The Texas chapter provides local, state, and regional support for adult members, high school, and junior thespians. The Texas Thespian chapter, named as Gold Educational Theater Association Honor Chapter, is recognized for tremendous work with students and teachers at the state, regional, and local levels. Texas Thespians provides educational festivals, workshops, and competitions for students, and conferences and professional development for teachers and administrators. We provide over $50,000 in student scholarships each year for graduating seniors and award over $15,000 in Thespian bucks for teachers. With over 500 troops, Texas Thespians represent over 15,000 middle school and high school students in public, private, and charter schools. Here are the events we offer in 2020-2021.
Why arts advocacy?
The arts inspire. The arts can create hope.
The arts illustrate the human condition. The arts teach empathy and compassion. The arts strengthen social relationships and identity.
The arts connect culture and commerce. The arts contribute to the Texas economy and connect our state. The creative workforce fuels our economy and our hearts. The arts generate $5.59 billion and up for the Texas economy.
The arts are my future career. As a student of the arts in Texas, I value what the arts have taught me. The arts have improved my education.
The arts have developed who I am and have greatly improved my life and my learning. They are an invaluable tool for self-expression, stress reduction, and study skills.
The arts have taught me 21st century skills that will support me in the Texas workforce.
Why advocate for the arts? As Stephen Sondheim once said, art in itself is an attempt to bring order out of chaos. The arts improve health and well-being.
The arts help us prompt social change and connections in the most difficult of times.
The arts have the ability to bring our communities together. There is no recovery without the arts and creativity.
Texas Thespians values the arts. We support arts advocacy and the impact of the arts in Texas. Support the arts.
Thank you, Texas Thespians, and more power to getting more young people involved in advocacy efforts. And again, we do that in DC, and just really happy to spread that word. We are now shifting back to nuts and bolts. This is our next to final event conversation, and this is with Christopher Kiley, our Associate Director, and Randy Cohen, the Vice President of Research with Americans for the Arts. Now we're getting down to sort of brass tacks, returning to our conversation about managing a legislative visit. We've touched upon that a number of times, and everybody's new angle and perspective is always really helpful, especially as we prepare for their visits, some of them starting in about an hour and a half here. So I'm going to turn this over to Chris to open, and then Chris will pass it to Randy. So thank you both for this next conversation.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for the time today to talk about what to expect from a legislative meeting. You know, I'm sitting here with Randy, who's a significantly more seasoned advocate than I am, but nonetheless, both of us have been in this situation many times over. And after hearing all of this, what we call our data dump, right? We've been overwhelmed with facts and figures and tactics and strategies. It can feel overwhelming. And I just want to give everybody an opportunity to take a breath and realize that no matter how many times you do this, when you have trainings like this, there's always going to be that slight feeling of being overwhelmed, but there's really nothing to worry about. The most important thing you can remember when going into these meetings is that these are people that in many cases you have put into their job, right? You have elected these officials and they are there for you. They want to meet you. They want to talk to you. They want to know what's important to you. So if we go back to what we heard earlier today, and we heard from Shannon and from Senator Eckhart about what makes for a successful visit. As you start to plan how it's going to go out, the first thing, again, you want to revisit is to always go forward and say, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to come in, and you want to give everybody an opportunity to know who's in the room. If you're with a smaller group, it's a great chance for you to introduce yourselves, what you do, why you're there. In a larger group, you may want to have your leader sort of frame how everybody is there and what they're there to talk about. The next thing would be to lay out your goal. As Shannon said, what is the overarching goal of our Arts Advocacy Day? Well, our job is to create funding streams and revenue streams and public support for the arts, sort of in an umbrella way. The next thing that Shannon sort of talked about and Ann backed up is this notion of sort of solutions. It's easy to go in there and say, I'm an artist and I love the arts and I want to support the arts, but your legislators are really looking for how can they help? What can they do? So we've also offered you today a number of solutions. And depending on your meeting, those solutions might look a little bit differently. For example, the solution you may offer for the House to ensure, the second ask is to make sure that we bat off any attempts to go after that $10 million in cultural district funding, because we know that there may be attempts to do that down the road. In the Senate, we have a very concrete ask. We know that the proposed Senate budget has cut the cultural district funding by $4 million, and our goal is to see that money restored. So there's your solution. The way to think about it beyond that, and I think Randy and I have slightly different approaches, but I think it's really fascinating that both of them can achieve really compelling results, is how to go beyond that and to connect it back to you. Randy and I both use this motto that you can't really have a story without being backed up by data, and data doesn't really mean anything if it's not backed up by your story. So anecdotally, I will share that in another life, prior to working for Texans for the Arts, or when I started working for Texans for the Arts, I was a teaching artist in residency with an Austin nonprofit. I was an arts integration specialist. So I would partner with a classroom teacher, and I would go in and I would spend time with students, and my specialty was 5th grade science, which is ironic because I was terrible at science as a kid, but I was a theater artist and they needed somebody to help teach science. So that's what I did. This program was directly funded by TCA monies through grants. So what we were able to say is my fact, or sort of my like supporting fact, was that what we've seen is that when students engage in arts programming, they're going to test about 15% higher on their standardized tests. And why does that matter? In 5th grade science, that's one of their STAR tests for all you teachers in the room. You know that if they don't pass that, they can't move forward. And this program was very targeted, and I was working with a group of students where only about 44% of them were passing the initial STAR test, sort of like the gauge taker, where they're like, where are they now? After spending 6 months in the classroom in partnership with their actual academic teacher and using arts programming to support the learning of science, we had a 100% pass rate test for those students in my class. That's a great way to take a fact and to use your story and how I was a boots on the ground recipient of some of this grant money and how it really makes a difference in our Texas communities. And I think when I train my advocates, that's what I always lean on. The power of the personal narrative. Why are you there? Yes, it is. It's absolutely important to understand why your legislator is attached to the arts. Maybe what, as Senator Eckhart says, what's their favorite album? What did they like to do as a kid when they were in the arts? But I also like to remind my advocates, and this also can take some of that stress off of you, is that your story is the most important story. Why are you there? Why do the arts matter to you? And why do they make a difference in your community? The power of the personal narrative can go such a long way. We look at these as meetings, right? And sometimes we think about, oh my gosh, I've got 15 minutes to change the world. Well, keep in mind that the way we like to think about these meetings is that they're an opportunity to either continue building upon an existing relationship or to forge a new relationship with your elected official. As Randy will speak to in a minute, I'm sure, Randy has had a long-lasting relationship with someone who was an elected official who started in one place and who now is a senator in the U.S. Senate, and he can still call him because they've established that relationship. And what they are they going to remember the facts that you provide them? We hope so, absolutely. But that's also why we have these digital leave-behinds, the video we showed, the video we showed earlier, the fact sheets that we've provided you. Really take the time, though, and don't underestimate the power of your story and how you can actually make a difference in changing their mind about the way they view the arts. Or, as we like to say, the best stories are the ones that if you tell the story and then you find them telling that story to other elected officials or other constituents, then you're an ace in the hole because then you're on their mind. So that's sort of the insight I'd like to give everybody as we move into this last section. We know you've received a lot of information, and we know that it can feel pretty overwhelming, but you're exactly where you need to be, and your elected officials are excited to see you. So as I lean into the story, I'm going to turn it over to Randy here, because Randy is an expert at taking data and facts and turning those in and of themselves into a compelling story. So Randy, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Great. Hi, thanks, Chris, and hi, Ann, and hi, everybody. It's such a delight to be with you today, and on such an exciting day. I love advocacy days. I love this kind of season for the arts, and I pulled out my International Thespian Society card, and yes, I learned 21st century skills back in the 20th century. So, we're really pushing that far forward. I just want to start by saying thank you to everybody for the work you're doing. And my gosh, what a hard year it's been. And it doesn't matter what part of the arts world you're in, you're presenter, performer, artist, administrator, it's just been really rough. And I just want to thank everybody and congratulate you and appreciate you for getting up and doing it every single day. I mean, it has been a year of trauma. And here we are, Arts Advocacy Day virtual. and our meetings virtual, completely different and new. And so what I did, so I'm in the DC area, and so all my neighbors, of course, work on Capitol Hill, and I talked with a couple of folks, and it's like, well, so how are the meetings going with constituents? Where are folks getting tripped up? And so you've gotten all kinds of great checklists. I've been with you on the meeting for a couple hours here. It's been great, and I've been taking my own notes. But just a couple little things that seem like most obvious. So when you request the meeting, obviously that's the old-fashioned way. You email people, you call them up, or all that type of thing. And I know a lot of you have your meetings scheduled already. If you don't, offer to host the meeting, perhaps if you've got your own Zoom thing. But often they'll say, you know what, we'll host it. Here's the technology we use, and some folks aren't always ready with that technology. So here's a real simple one. Practice the technology, figure out Zoom before you even get on it. Honestly, 11 and a half months ago, I kind of knew Zoom a little bit, and now I can do any of these platforms now, but repetition, practice, and because that's, they've got this much time, and the technology has been sort of a time killer for folks. Check your background, make sure your lighting is right. I mean, really obvious things, but sometimes it's just those we forget. If a little kid comes in, cute, maybe your cat's there, cute. The barking dog is a crazy maker, so if you can calm the dog down or get the dog upstairs and you go downstairs, dress for the meeting still, biz casual is great. And then the meeting itself is going to be pretty similar. Chris just gave another great description. Stage it out, assign people, introduce who opens, who goes from piece to piece. And again, always introduce yourself. I am your constituent, and here's how I connect to the arts. And then, then really where the important piece Chris was talking about, what I call, from us at Americans for the Arts, it's the golden rule. No numbers without a story, no stories without a number. And, the stories, a story engages you. It creates a personal kind of connection. It captures the imagination a little bit. And then the numbers afterwards just show that, this wasn't some crazy accident. This happens 1,000 times a day, or, whatever. And actually the research shows it actually touches different part of the brain. So you're getting more of the brain that way, just by even remembering those two pieces. Couple of other little things I want to mention. Some of you today may have an appointment with your legislator. You may end up talking to, a legislative assistant or a staff person. That's okay. They work as a team. It may feel a little disappointing sometimes, but the message is still going to absolutely get through. And then just sort of finishing out the meeting piece, email that leave behind. We used to leave behind the leave behind, and follow up with another thank you, say thank you, appreciate the time. Follow up again. It's building that relationship. It's, the habit of advocacy. And Chris was mentioning, one of my one of my US senators, I live in Maryland, I'm across the street from district, Chris Van Hollen, started out in the state legislature. In fact, he used to be a staffer for Senator Mike Mathias a million years ago, who my wife worked with. But here's the thing, we're all in the people business, right? And it's about building those relationships. And so he went from staffer to a great state legislator, and so just to connect with him. And, he was really accessible back then too. If you're a state legislator, you got a lot more time than, say, if you're a member of Congress, which he became next, and then U.S. Senator. But we've got that relationship, and I can just tell you over the years, when there's been some arts legislation, or, arts as part of the stimulus, a couple of key questions here, honestly, is staff sometimes, they'll reach out. Hey, we just want to make sure we got all the facts on this, or is this the right economic impact stuff? We've seen two different numbers. So I'm a go-to guy for a U.S. Senator, and that's something I'm really proud about. The messages, and we've really hit some important ones today. it's such a challenging time for the arts right now, and we've heard about the devastation nationally. Arts have lost, nonprofit arts organizations down $15.2 billion, 486 million lost admissions. I mean, we've heard of the devastation, and there's some statewide numbers. Artists, 60%, fully unemployed. It's a real challenging time right now, but and it's important to understand that and be able to talk about the situation now. So I mean, you just look at all the different data sets. Whether you heard about the Brookings one, you look at the federal unemployment data on artists. The arts are among the most severely impacted sector of the nation's economy. And you heard it earlier: first to close, last to open. I mean, this is really a huge challenge. But here's where I think the opportunity is for the arts, and why we have to maintain our investment in the arts. When we get to the other side of this, and we'll probably ease our way there, but there will be another side of this at some point. There's going to be two areas of focus. One, the economy. How do we jumpstart the economy? And the other is community unity, and living and working and being together as a community. And you've heard some important messages about that, but let me tell you this: the arts are the secret weapon here, because when we go to an arts event, it gets us out of the home. And when we go to an arts event, we spend money. Our National Arts and Economic Prosperity Study, we did 212,000 audience intercept surveys. The typical attendee spends $31.47 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. And those are dollars going to local businesses. But I'll tell you something else we know. 1/3 of those, 34% of arts attendees, come from outside the county in which the arts event took place. And this is our whole cultural tourism argument, right? They average just about $48 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. And we asked those non-locals, why are you here? We're glad you're here. Thanks for coming. Are you here on business? Are you here visiting friends and family? 69% said, we came specifically for this arts event. And so what it shows is that when we invest in the arts, we're investing in a product that draws people to the community. And that is economic development, folks. That is the arts bringing people and their wallets to their community. And we asked the local folks, the folks who live in the county, another question, which was, because we're just that annoying, why are you here? We asked the locals, what if this arts event wasn't taking place? Would you have, stayed home, watched Netflix? We gave them a big list of things. 41%, nearly half, said we'd travel to a different community to attend a similar kind of arts event. So isn't that interesting? The arts are keeping our neighbors and their hard-won discretionary dollars right there in the community. And that's why it's in our best interest to have this vibrant arts community locally. And that's a story that legislator needs to hear. Now, here's the flip side of that. The arts, shared experiences in public spaces. Maybe it's going to view a mural or be part of making a mural, a community arts project, or going to an open air festival, seeing Hamilton for the third time or something. Nobody cares who you voted for or where you practice your faith. It's, we're all here for this great experience. It's something we do together. And the public gets this too. 72% of Americans say the arts unify our communities, regardless of age, race, or ethnicity. 73%, the arts help me understand other cultures in my community. So the arts are also going to help bring us back together and enable us to live in a healthier community and in a more economic, prosperous community. So the arts aren't just nice, they're necessary for our communities.
Bravo, Randy. That's a lot of what you've been hearing, and thanks for sharing. And you have that encyclopedic knowledge of all of those facts and figures. And I actually, just in preparing for our the Senate hearing today, the remarks as I was gleaning some of those kinds of numbers from some of the cultural district funding that had been sent, in particular in a museum in Fort Worth. Just really impressive numbers, people traveling specifically to that city outside the county to see that arts event, and amplifying and magnifying the economic impact. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Good luck today, everybody.
Yes, thank you. And this segues directly into our final guest today, who is a storyteller, a master of theater storyteller, Mark Pouet. And I just saw Mark in production live stream of Thurgood Marshall in a remarkable performance about 2 weeks ago that's ongoing, and it will be available actually on video as well. Mark is an Austin-based actor. He is the vice president of the board of Austin Shakespeare, where he has a long history of performing, and I've seen him in many roles there as well. He holds a bachelor's degree in electronic media and theater from Texas State University, and he has received here, Austin Critics Table Award, and a recipient of the John Booston Award for Conspicuous Versatility. And he's been recognized by the Austin Chronicle in the Best of Austin, Best Classic Leading Man. He's got a lot of accolades and performances, but he also has a really remarkable story about the arts and the power of the arts to save lives, literally. And I would like to welcome Mark Pouet to the floor, or to the stage here. Mark?
Thank you very much, Anne. Hello, everybody, and I want to thank you for your patience in what has probably been an inspiring but long morning. My name is Mark Pouet, and as Anne said, I'm an actor based in Austin, Texas, and the board VP of Austin Shakespeare. It's the premier classical theater company of Central Texas. Now, I fondly remember the last time I spoke to this organization. I was invited to be the closing speaker for Arts Advocacy Day back in 2015. I followed several speakers and presentations that morning, and as I approached the podium, the audience was restless, hungry, overwhelmed, and ready for a well-deserved lunch break. Now, I was faced with the challenge of speaking for 15 minutes from self-written words, so that same restless, overwhelmed, and hungry crowd had to listen to me. Any decent actor knows how to read a room and engage an audience. And I faced two obstacles: the audience's increasing exhaustion and my own self-doubt that my words and my story would have any interest or impact. Now, as luck would have it, my story was captivating enough to gather the audience's attention and eventually yield a standing ovation. I had many discussions with people afterward detailing my past experiences. But now I want to take a few minutes and review what I talked about back in 2015. I started acting in college when a friend urged me to audition for a Shakespeare play, Pericles. I'd never acted before, and the story goes something like this. When I went to audition, they asked me if I wanted to use a monologue or do a cold read. Now, I responded, "What exactly is a monologue?" Well, they laughed and offered me some text to read. I looked at the text and determined what I would do in the same situation, and then delivered the monologue in the best way I possibly could. So 2 days later passed. I received a phone call on my dorm's telephone answering machine. We didn't have cell phones back then. And I was asked to come back and read again. But I was a bit discouraged, and I said, "Listen, if you didn't like what I did, don't make me go back there and embarrass myself." I said, No. You have a call back." So I played sports in high school. I was still thinking in terms of sports tryouts. So I thought, oh, okay, I made the cut. So I went back in, I read some sides. Lo and behold, I was cast in my first play in a rather large role, Helicanus in Pericles. Well, Shakespeare was new to me, but I didn't view it any differently than any other play. I thought that's just the way the plays were. And I had a really great time for what I considered a cool one-off experience. Well, the very next semester, I was approached by the musical director for Pericles and asked to audition for a musical called Working. He wanted me to come in and sing and read for the part of Mike Dillard. It was a lead in a large ensemble cast. Now, I didn't know anything about musicals at the time, but I memorized a really cool jazz song, Autumn Serenade, by Johnny Hartman and John Coltrane. I sang an a cappella, and I was cast again with a larger part this time. Now, the same pattern repeated itself for several years throughout my college experience. I was extremely lucky to get cast in a majority of stage roles that I auditioned for early in my career. Now, that luck came with two different outcomes. First, I was getting great leading roles. Second, I was getting roles that I wasn't necessarily prepared for, but my fear of failure and my desire to succeed improved my acting ability much quicker than just taking my time and doing those things naturally would have. So I decided to change my major from engineering and transfer to Texas State University, in Southwest Texas at the time, and pursue acting as a minor with a major in broadcasting. I was cast in a couple of main stage shows and countless black box productions. 6 Degrees of Separation was my first big dramatic lead, and in my senior year, I was cast as Billy Flynn in Chicago the Musical. I really enjoyed the experiences and the lessons that I learned in college theater. Now, I got married shortly after graduation, and I had my first of 3 children. I decided after a couple of years that I wanted to start acting professionally. My first professional job was with Austin Shakespeare in the fall of 2004, playing Theseus in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Now, being able to perform professionally and make money while doing so was the dream that I didn't even know I had a few years before. Over the next 5 years, I was able to work with several premier theaters in Austin, like Zach Theater, Austin Shakespeare, a few others, and a few guest appearances at St. Edward's University. And I started to plan my seasons. Theater companies would post their season schedules months in advance, and I would say to myself, these are the plays I want to get into. Now, I viewed acting as my real career that I balanced with my requisite day job. I often steered myself towards plays that I felt had a socially conscious impact. One of the earliest plays that I did at Zach Theater was The Exonerated. It was a play about individuals who had been on death row and were eventually released due to overwhelming evidence that proved their innocence. Now, that was a huge issue, especially in Texas, which leads America with 569 executions since 1976. Texas has had more executions than the next 8 states combined. Knowing that I could reach people through the medium of theater was good for my soul. Now, even the lighter fare that I did, musicals like Urinetown, an outrageously funny and satirical musical comedy, had a deeper message of environmental impact and corporate greed. I was lucky enough to play Caldwell B. Cladwell, chief executive officer of a corporation called You're in Good Company. Little play on words. Now, over the next 5 years, I pursued other roles, including Death and the King's Horseman, my first guest artist role at St. Edward's University, written by Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka. It was based on a true story that happened in West Africa during World War II. Now, after the king in the story has died, the horseman of the title, which is the role I played, had a month to follow his king into the afterlife. The author didn't describe how that was supposed to happen, but his ceremony was interrupted by British colonial forces, setting off a chain of events that put into question his beliefs and his duty. Now, that play was truly important to me because my father was born in Cameroon in West Africa, and I was able to explore many aspects of his life and my background that I had never been able to do growing up in Texas. The very last play that I performed in before I had to take a hiatus for illness in 2009 was The Grapes of Wrath. I played Jim Casey, a reverend who accompanied the Joad family on their journey from Oklahoma to the West Coast during the Dust Bowl. Now, there were stunning parallels between that play and what was going on in society at the time. In the spring of 2009, we were in the first few months of President Obama's first term. It was also during the middle of the Great Recession, which started in the fall of 2008 and was at the time the largest financial crisis we've had since the Great Depression. Now, there were news stories about foreclosures, tent cities, and food lines that reflected a lot of the things that were going on in the play and unfortunately reflect the reality for millions of Americans today. Now, after closing that play, I started to feel sick. Over the next few weeks, I gained weight rapidly. This was a warning sign of a disease that I ended up dealing with for the next 5 years, and I still deal with today. I was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure, in particular, IgA nephropathy, or immunoglobulin A nephropathy. That's a disease where your immune system goes into overdrive and the immunoglobulin A particles kind of punch holes in your kidneys, damaging them permanently. My life was put on hold. I moved to the Rio Grande Valley, where my mother was a pharmacist. She put me in touch with a great medical team, a nephrologist who I thank for saving my life multiple times, a great dialysis team, and a transplant team. Over the course of the next 3 years, I would be on dialysis. I would experience countless trips to the hospital and at least 3 to 4 close calls with death. Thankfully, I received a kidney transplant on June 1st, 2012. My youngest brother, Jack, donated a kidney so that I could live. Even though we weren't a match, we were able to participate in a kidney exchange program that didn't exist 20 years ago. Now, he donated a kidney to recipient A. Recipient A donated a kidney to recipient B, and recipients B, their donor, donated a kidney to me. So it was a 3-way kidney exchange with 6 participants, 3 donors and 3 recipients. We had our surgeries all at the same time at the Texas Transplant Institute in San Antonio. And needless to say, that transplant was life-saving. Now, there was another thing that saved me emotionally and mentally while I was sick during that time that I wasn't able to act. I took up the visual arts. I started painting. I painted every day for 4 months straight, and I ended up with about 90 different pieces. A lot of those paintings still live in my mother's upstairs gallery. I always joke with her that, you know, I'd like to take them with me someday, but she says, well, that was rent for living with me for 3 years. I decided at the time that I could be happy without theater. I felt that I could move on with my life knowing that I was satisfied with what I had accomplished in 5 years professionally. But then I returned to Austin in 2013, and I noticed that Austin Shakespeare was holding auditions for Othello. Now, Othello was the only play that I'd been in from early in my career that I always felt unsatisfied about the outcome. It was my 3rd professional production back in 2005. I didn't feel like I was ready for it, professionally or emotionally. I initially got the part because the lead had decided to move back to North Carolina, and I did the very best I could, yet I was never satisfied with my initial performance. So I talked with my wife, and I asked her if I should audition for this new production. And I also asked if I did get it, did she think it was okay for me to pursue this, even with my health in the precarious position I still believed it to be. She encouraged me to audition and told me, if you get it, I'll support you 100%. I was lucky enough to go through multiple rounds of auditions and eventually be cast as Othello. I felt alive again performing in that play. I was nervous because my body had aged 5 years and probably more because of the illness. I was worried that I wouldn't have the stamina or the mental focus to carry this kind of production, but I knew that if I could make it through, then I could always say, I've done a good job. You know, I can retire on a high note, and I don't have anything else left to prove. Well, the production turned out to be so successful that I spoke with my director, Ann Ciccolella, and I jokingly told her, if you ever want to cast me again in any production as a lead, I'll be more than happy to do it. I just ask that you please don't cast me in any outdoor shows because they are strenuous and hot, especially in May in Austin. Well, she eventually cast me in 4 outdoor shows, 3 of which were very physical leads in Macbeth, Taming of the Shrew, and as Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. Now that's just a fraction of the plays that I've done with Austin Shakespeare and other companies since returning to the stage in 2014. Socially conscious work still dominates my focus, even more so now than earlier in my career. When I first started acting professionally, I spent my time trying to get into as many important roles as possible, but I hadn't really focused on plays that dealt with my African-American identity. Now, in the years since 2014, however, I have had the privilege to play characters including Martin Luther King Jr. in The Mountaintop and Satchel Paige in the Kansas City Swing, both for Austin Playhouse, and Kyle Brown in Dr. Lisa B. Thompson's Underground, a vital work about Black liberation which very much paralleled and predicted the events of the summer of 2020. Now, Dr. Thompson began writing the story of Underground in the aftermath of the LA uprising of 1992, and we told that story in the winter of 2017. The intelligence that she brought to that script prepared me through research to understand some of the challenges and struggles that the Black community has faced over the past 400 years and the long road we still have ahead of us. Most recently, I was proud to participate in my first one-man show, a production of Thurgood, produced by the Public Theater of San Antonio. This biographical story of the first Black Supreme Court justice has been the biggest artistic challenge of my life. It's a one-person show done remotely from my upstairs office in keeping with our COVID safety protocols. The play is a 95-minute monologue with no intermission. Once the camera starts rolling, the ship is completely under my control. Now, Thurgood was the perfect production for me at the perfect time, primarily because the previous 4 years in American history have tested the limits of our Constitution and our democracy, tested our preparedness for crises upon crises, and encouraged a long overdue examination of racism and white supremacy in America. Through portraying Thurgood Marshall and his contributions, I was able to look back over hundreds of years of untold American history. Although he was born in 1908, he described the challenges his ancestors faced, decades of Jim Crow laws, and violent discrimination. Now, I understood about the victories and the triumphs that were achieved by both individuals and groups through legislation, through court decisions and protests, and I also began to understand that no progress or advances have ever been made without dedicated, continuous pressure. Integration and voting rights exist now, not because dominating forces in society and the government decided to just randomly integrate or grant rights to African Americans. Thurgood Marshall's victory in Brown versus the Board of Education took many years to accomplish, and he actually lost the first round of Brown v. Board of Education. It was only in his second attempt, when a new Chief Justice, Earl Warren, was appointed by President Eisenhower, that Marshall was able to convince the 9 justices to unanimously rule that segregation was unconstitutional according to the 14th Amendment. And that was in 1954. Now, if any of you are of a certain age and grew up in Texas or several places around the country, you know that segregation did not end in practice in 1954. There are schools in Austin that did not fully integrate until 1980. And there are still schools and issues that we're dealing with now that have de facto, if not official, segregation. Voting rights are still under attack by disenfranchisement of minority groups by several state legislatures. The point I'm making is that through the arts, I was able to nourish my soul, my body, and my mind. By living through the lives of various individuals throughout history and through fictional characters, I have a better understanding of the world and the way in which it operates. I am eternally grateful for theater's place in my life. I know I wouldn't be the man I am today if my friend hadn't convinced me to audition for a play on a whim 22 years ago, and if I hadn't made the decision to return to the stage after being sick. Theater has been a part of my life for 22 years, and I want it to be a part of my life for at least another 22 so I can continue to grow. Now, I'd like to conclude my speech today with a poem from Langston Hughes that happily intersects with the closing lines of the play Thurgood, which has been extended for 4 performances through the month of February. More information can be found on the Public Theater of San Antonio's webpage, and it will be streamed online February 10th, 18th, 20th, and 27th. The poem is called Let America Be America Again, and I will read it in its entirety because it's a powerfully moving piece that speaks to our very specific challenges at this time in history, even though being written 85 years ago. Thank you. Let America Be America Again by Langston Hughes. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of profit, power, gain, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the ways of satisfying need, of work the men, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean. Hungry yet today, despite the dream, beaten yet today. Oh, pioneers, I am the man who never got ahead, the poorest worker bartered through the years. Yet, I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream in the old world, while still a serf of kings who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, in every furrow turned, that's made America the land it has become. Oh, I'm the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea, and torn from black Africa's strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. The free. Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay for all the dreams we've dreamed, and all the songs we've sung, and all the hopes we've held, and all the flags we've hung. The millions who have nothing for our pay except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again. The land that never has been yet and yet must be. The land where every man is free. The land that's mine. The poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me who made America. Whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. For those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again, America. Oh, yes. I say it plain. America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the rack and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain, all all the stretch of these great green states and make America again. Thank you.
That was quite a performance. Thank you, Mark. I urge all of you to check out Mark's performance, to watch Mark's performance of Thurgood that connects very deeply to the poem by Langston Hughes. Thank you for sharing that. Wish you could see a standing ovation. There's a pause here as everybody just digests your remarks. So priceless, priceless. We are wrapping up an amazing morning. Lots of speakers. Really thank every single person who had something to do with today's summit. We didn't choose to go virtual. There's a lot of benefits we discovered, reaching more people from across the state, making more people able to participate. That's clearly a silver lining, something we will take forward into the future. Loved having the diversity of voices in conversation on tying the requests that we're making that are logistical and lobbying and advocacy and tying them to people's human stories and really having all of you on the panel bring that home. We are segueing into a series of meetings. I know that a lot of you have had difficulty. It's a challenge. Please reach out to us at intern@texansforthearts.com or info@texansforthearts.com if you are having challenges or not getting responses. It's just different this year. And we will work with you. Doesn't have to happen today, doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but we're really committed to ensuring that all of our participants who stuck with us here really do get the benefit of building these relationships with our decision makers. It's paramount. It's not just about today. It's not just even about this session. It's about moving forward. So please reach out to us. I know that I have a meeting at 1 o'clock with our House representative, and we have a team coming from here, and we're going to be convening and putting to use the data and the stories and all of this, and we look forward to having that. And lastly, as you heard Cookie share at the beginning, we will be reconvening this Thursday from 4 to 5 o'clock for a happy hour, a virtual happy hour. We want to hear from you about successes, challenges. Even if you didn't make a meeting yet by Thursday, please join us and share of just the experiences you've had. We've covered a lot of ground. We will follow up additionally with links, attachments, a survey, just to get your feedback and with any of the follow-up materials that were mentioned that you might have not had, didn't get in an email or not at your disposal, and we want you to have all those resources. So the session has just begun. Clearly it's a month in, but today, First Senate Finance Committee, House Appropriations they just decided who's on the committee, right? So there's a lot of time for us to make a difference. There's formal hearings, and then there's our relationship building and working with our legislators. So I throw this out to my partners in crime, Fiona, Cookie, and Chris. Any last minute comments? Really appreciate your leadership and teamwork to make this happen today. Cannot thank you enough. And don't know if any final remarks.
I just wanted to thank everyone, excuse me, also for the gift of your time today. Being able to gather this day together in this way, and the time and the attention that you paid. Our panelists have been really extraordinary. Also, the gift of their time, and each of our artists that have shared with us today, I think, remind us what this is really all about. We hope to see you on Thursday. We hope if you're not a member of Texans for the Arts that you'll consider joining us. But the most important thing is for us, in the way that we can, to be willing to show up and stand up and speak up. So thank you for the voice that you will lend to all the things that make the arts so important in our state. So thank you for being with us today.